Hello, everybody. My name is Demetra Moore. For those who didn't watch the Facebook Live last week, and my hope is that you can hear me. I am attempting to do another Facebook Live utilizing some new software I'm excited to be using. Last week, you guys said you couldn't hear me, so I have my phone out this week to be sure that I can, of course, adhere to anybody that's reaching out to me. I also have my laptop open so I can see any Facebook messages or things of that nature. So nevertheless, I'm excited to be back this week with the second week of the communication series. So just in case you missed last week, let me tell you a little bit about who I am, what I do, and why I'm showing up every week. My name is Demetra Moore, and I am, of course, the president of Moore Life. And I am a certified professional development coach who specializes in soft skills. So what does that mean to you? You're probably saying, I'm the person who likes to come into, I'm the person who likes to partner with small businesses in order to help them increase their bottom line by wowing their customers, allowing them to create an experience for their customers. So people will like to come back to your organization. And I think that is the bottom line for soft skills. And just in case you didn't know, one study shows that small businesses with 100 or less employees have lost amounts as large as $420,000 in 1 year due to the lack of developing soft skills within the within the business, because people will not come back for whatever the reason may have been, and no one wants that. So without further ado, I'm making sure I pay attention to you guys' messages. Got me looking down, but just making sure that you guys can hear me and that you are getting something from this message this evening. So tonight, recap from last week, we talked about just pretty much presenting yourself in the workplace. And just a quick summary, we talked about how you're showing up for everything, how you pretty much talk to people, your behavior and things of that nature in meetings. I think I got a message. Okay. So we talked about that last week. And the overall objective with that is pretty much just to talk about the different phases of communication, and presentation was the big one. So, and Keith, thank you for watching. I see your like, I appreciate it. So this week I wanted to talk about giving and receiving feedback in the workplace, which is a big thing because people get caught up in the whole giving and receiving feedback. They get all uncomfortable. No one wants to be pulled to the side for that conversation, so to speak. People just don't like those awkward conversations. But I'm here to tell you they're only awkward if you make them awkward. So tonight, while you're watching this Facebook Live, my advice would be to make a few notes to make sure you pay attention to some of the tips that will be coming out of this communication series this month. So I hope you guys are ready, and if you guys can let me know if you can hear me, that'd be great. I'm hoping you can. I haven't gotten any text messages or anything of that nature saying that you can't. So what I want to share with you is pretty much 3 tips to giving and receiving feedback. Well, not tips, but objectives of what I want to talk about this evening. The first one is just overall communication. And people get really weird about communicating in the workplace. Now, what I talked about earlier was those awkward conversations. Now, they wouldn't be so awkward if they were done in a decent manner. So I want you to write down these 3 takeaways for the conversations. You have to think about when, where, and how they're going to occur. And you're probably thinking, Demetra, that sounds like common sense. Yeah, it does, until you think about how your day is ran when you have lots of things going on. You got life happening. You got things popping up. Most people don't think about the time. They're just like, hey, Demetra, I need to talk to you for a second. And then it becomes that inopportune time. And okay, let me describe what the inopportune time is. You've just come in to work. You just put your stuff on your desk, or you just got started working, and you're getting into your flow. Maybe you were late to work. Maybe your kids were sick. Maybe you just overslept. It was just that morning, right? And you get to work and they say, hey, Demetra, I need to talk to you. And then you have the mean face. And you're looking like, why am I here? or why do you want to talk to me? And Jeff, thank you for watching. I see you watching. So that's the inopportune time when someone calls you to have a conversation. So you have to be mindful of where, when, and how. And then one thing I do hate that I've seen so many times when I'm out doing contracts is that people are not cognizant of where they're trying to have the conversation. Now, imagine the cube that you probably sit in at work. That's not big enough to have a private conversation. So the whispering, that makes it already uncomfortable, because who wants to whisper in a cube knowing that there's everybody sitting around you? That is the most awkward feeling ever. I know I've been there, and if you've been there before, message in the comments and say that was me, because I think everyone has been through that. There's so many organizations that utilize cubicles, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you need to have that conversation, then it needs to be maybe in a conference room, or maybe in a choice room. That's what some places call them, where you can kind of go off to the side and have a conversation. Or maybe it needs to be in the phone room if you have some of those at your company. Or maybe it needs to be, you can go to lunch, you can go down for coffee, you can go for a walk outside. It could be a wide array of things, but don't have that conversation in that cubicle, because that just causes everyone else to kind of wonder what you're talking about and makes that inopportune moment even more uncomfortable. So be careful about where you're having the conversation. And the next thing is how. If you're feeling, I'll say, if you have some emotion tied to the conversation, and technically it's not supposed to be, being that it's a professional oriented conversation, but if there's some emotion tied to the conversation, then you need to wait until there's not. And that brings about how you're delivering the message, how you're treating the person when you're talking to them, and if you're feeling some type of way. And Jeff, I'm looking down at my laptop. I see you talking about being private, and exactly, Jeff, it causes gossip in the workplace. To say so-and-so was in Demetra's cube, talking to Demetra this morning. All of that could be avoided if you simply send a message and you say, hey, can I talk to you? Hey, let's set up a time to talk. Going into the cube and pulling somebody to the side, that is just not a way to give feedback to someone, because there's so many variables playing into that. So that type of thing you want to avoid. So remember those three things when you're thinking about having a timely conversation: is when, where, how. Those are important. Plan those out. Don't make a conversation awkward when it doesn't have to be. And the other thing is, you have to have a plan when you're trying to communicate with other people. And there's something that I'll say you have to think about that when especially giving constructive feedback. The number one thing, so please write this down, number one thing is check your ego. Because sometimes people can come from a place of, I'm in authority, or I'm your manager, or I'm this and I'm that. But here's what you have to remember when you're delivering a message. It's more than the words that are coming out of your mouth. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But make sure you check your ego, because you want to make sure that you're delivering it from a place of helping them develop and not from a place of being condescending. So you want to make sure that you were talking to them and giving them ways to, I can't say be better, but ways to work on whatever that issue is. So check the ego when you're doing that. And the next thing, we talked a little bit about that, was creating a safe space. Don't go in the cube having a conversation. Don't be at the corner having the conversation. Send an email if that's necessary to keep people out of what's going on. And then book a conference room or what have you. But create that safe space and let the employee feel like they have the ability to give feedback. They have the ability to respond. But if you don't create that space, then they're not going to feel as though they have that ability. So I'm looking down at some of the comments you guys are making, just making sure I'm staying in tuned with you guys. So the other thing that I wanted to say was, of course, creating a safe space. The main thing is checking the ego. The other thing is be open to suggestions and ideas. Now, whether you like it or not, and I must say, this was me. I used to think my idea was the best idea in the world, okay? My suggestion was the one and only suggestion in the world. But I'm here to tell you, I learned through life's experiences that it is not. So when you're delivering those constructive feedback and you're having those conversations, sometimes the employee may have something that they want to say, or they may have an idea or a suggestion. I'm not saying it's going to be the best suggestion, but what I'm saying is just be open to hearing it, and be open to coming from a place of understanding and empathy if that's necessary, because you want to create a place where you can develop your team, and that is the most important thing when it comes to soft skills. It has to they have to be able to utilize effective communication skills and be able to articulate what you're saying within the workplace. So you guys got those 3 takeaways, right? Check your ego, create a safe space, and be open to suggestions and ideas. And one thing I want to say that is so important. I heard it in a book from Dale Carnegie. I can't remember which one, but it was talking about anytime you feel like you've been wronged in the workplace, or you're coming from a place of feeling like the victim in a situation, never come from a place of utilizing emotion. So when you're thinking about having a conversation with your manager, or even you guys who are out there that may be managers thinking about having a conversation with your employees, make sure that it's fact-based and you have something to say, this situation, not saying I feel as though, because that can sometimes put people on the defense. And that leads me to my next point, is you don't want to come across defensive. That can create a very awkward environment, and at the end of the day, nothing comes from that. So when you're receiving the feedback, you want to have an open mind. Always understand that, again, I know this is a hard lesson. It took me a long time to learn it, that our ideas are always not the best ideas. Our thoughts are not always the best thoughts, especially at that time. So take a second sometimes before you respond back. If you're in a meeting, you can simply say, thank you for this feedback, or, but just, may I have a couple of days to think about it, and we can, meet up again to finish discussing this. Always take a minute to process it and get your thoughts together, because what that allows you to do is really look at everything. And again, if the emotion is in it, you get a minute to put the emotion aside, and you really get a second to focus on your response to that specific situation. So think about that. And the most important thing that you get from having those conversations is the opportunity to grow. And I know we're like, gosh, I don't want to be there. Darn, I don't want to have this conversation. But at the end of the day, it helps you grow professionally. It puts you in a place where you're able to speak intelligently about what you're looking to do, speak intelligently about situations that you're uncomfortable being in, and you're able to talk to different levels of executives. And I say that because a lot of times people feel intimidated when there are certain executives in the room, or you don't want to really say what you're thinking. But here's the thing. Sometimes there's a platform to say that, but if you're not well versed in how to position yourself when you're in those atmospheres, then you have to make sure that you're taking chances and position yourself with the opportunity to grow to that, to be able to handle that. So you don't want to miss out on any opportunities because you're not good at receiving feedback, or you're always taking things personal. That is the last thing that you want to do. So if you just look at it as an opportunity to grow, you will be amazed at how that changes your perception. Because one thing I do know, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So just go in with an open mind and be ready to learn something from the conversation. So some other things I wanted to share was the body language. Now, you guys have seen people, they come in and their arms are all folded. You guys probably can't see my arms, but your arms are all folded. They got the mean face. They rolling their eyes. But they're like, I'm fine. I'm fine. But the body language says something different. Or they're looking at you side-eyed. And you're like, well, did I do something to you? And they're like, no, I'm fine. How many people have been in that situation before? If so, please make a comment. I'm looking now to see if I see any comments from you. But it's just a very awkward place. I'm seeing you guys making little comments in there. I'm trying to read them. But yeah, it's just an awkward place to be in when people have the body language, because it's, and I'm going to tell you a formula. I'm so excited about it. But anyway, the body language is very, very important. It's more important than what you think. And there's 3 types of listening that I'm going to share with you too, but you have to listen with intent. And people like, I heard you, but really, were you listening to me? And if so, what type of listening were you doing? And I want to share the 3 types of listening with you too. But, and of course, I talked about being open-minded, but I want to pull this up so I can tell you exactly what they are and allow you the opportunity to there's a handout that I created. If you're interested in getting the handout, of course, you can inbox me on the More Out of Life page and I'll send it to you. But the handout is pretty much on tips to give and receive feedback effectively. I've used it several times when I was out with other small businesses doing a presentation similar to this, and they've always liked it. So there's 3 types of listening. Again, pull out your notebook, write these down. The first one is subjective. That is based on an agenda. So that's like somebody's talking to you, but your mind is already made up, and it doesn't matter what else they're saying. You have an agenda for why you're talking to that person. So what they're saying is pretty much irrelevant. And the other one is objective, where you're truly focusing on the person that's talking to you. So, I mean, you're really putting your focus on that person. And then the last one is intuitive. That is hearing and connecting with the actual message that the person is giving to you. Now, that is the one that you need to be using when you're having those constructive conversations, but that's not always the one that we use. Sometimes we feel as though subjective listening is a little bit in there, objective listening is a little bit in there. So sometimes the message gets lost. But what I will say is intuitive listening is the one that you need to be using when you're in those constructive conversations. And that's on both ends, the employer and the employee, because you have to be connected to the message so you can have an open mind and really walk away with the lesson that you are going to overall use that information to become a better person. And that was that part about the listening. I had so much information to share. Now, for those who are still, I see you guys are still watching, but how many of you out there have heard of paraverbal communication? If you have, please put a message, just say I have in the feed so I can truly figure out who's versed in this. Well, paraverbal communication talks about how your messages carry these different impacts, and that you have to be mindful of your audience regardless of the size. So it doesn't matter who you're talking to, because it's all in how you deliver the message. So when it comes down to it, your voice and your delivery mean way more than your words. Now, you've heard people say it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? Now, I don't know about you guys, but I got to tell you, when I was a kid, and I don't know if my mom is watching or even if she knows how to watch, but I remember when I would do something that she told me not to do, and she would talk to me and her teeth wouldn't move, but words would be coming out of her mouth. I never understood how she did that as a kid, and I would be like, what in the world is she saying? But her mouth, her teeth wouldn't be moving, but words would be coming out. And I know you guys have seen that. Maybe it wasn't your mom, maybe it was somebody in your family, maybe you saw someone talk to their kid like that. And their body language is so stern, and they have their eyes squinted, and I mean you can just see the frustration in them. That is a part of paraverbal communication. And your body language and presentation, which is that part I talked about when my mom used to do that to me, that shows up in 55% of the message. So back to what I was saying, if somebody comes in and their arms are folded, they are, looking at you side-eyed, or they're not smiling, they didn't say good morning, or they fast talk. Now, I'm going to be transparent for a second. If I'm angry, I tend to fast talk, because my thoughts are rolling out quicker than the words can come out of my mouth. So I try to control that, or if I'm excited, I end up talking really, really fast. So body language and presentation of how you're delivering the message is 55% of the message. And the other 38% is your voice. So if your voice is going up, or, for men, maybe it's that whole bass thing showing up, that's 38% of your message. And the words are only 7. So could you imagine that for a second? Somebody saying that they're happy or they're okay, but yet their arms are folded, their eyes are squinted, and they're talking fast, and their voice is all high, or for a guy, it's all that low voice. and a lot of volume is added to it because it talks about the tone and the pitch in there too. But yet they're saying I'm good and they wish you to have a great day. You would be looking at them side-eyed like, I don't know about that. Like, are you really bidding me a good day, or are you saying this is my last day, you know? So make sure that you're mindful of those things when you're giving and receiving feedback. And these instances are not necessarily in performance reviews. It's just in general. When you're in the workplace, you could be talking to your colleagues, but you have to be mindful of how you're giving and receiving the feedback. So one exercise that I will challenge each and every one of you with this evening who are watching is to practice talking to a colleague or an accountability partner and see how you were delivering messages or how you can present yourself to them to see if they come across offensive to them. I mean, ask them to check your body language, because sometimes we talk and our head is this way, or we talk with our hands, and depending on who you're talking to, talking with your hands can come across as offensive. So make sure that you are mindful of your body language. And the last point I wanted to make, I wrote these things down because this is something that I love talking about, is just understand that communication is a very powerful tool. And it's things you want to keep looking at in regards to how you can continue to become better at being an effective communicator. And the goal of being effective with your communication skills is just to build stronger relationships. So just make sure you're mindful of these things. And one thought I just want to leave you with is the worst thing that can happen with communication is the thought that it actually happened. So for this series, I want to keep working on sharing different facets of communication. I'm hoping you guys are getting something out of this. And if you're looking to get the worksheet that I alluded to earlier, definitely inbox me or make, say something about it in the comments, and I'll be sure to reach out to you to get you the information. Thank you for tuning in this week. I really appreciate your support, and I thank you guys for chiming in, sending the messages, making posts. So thank you again for your support, and tell anyone that you know just to tune in on Thursdays at 7:30. I will continue this soft skills development series. And next week, I want to say I'm going to be on. I have to do some traveling to do some corporate training on next weekend. But my goal is to be situated to be able to do it. If I do miss it due to travel, it's not because I didn't want to show up again. I'm traveling. So I'm going to try to time it to be able to do this live. If not, I will show up the first week of November to continue this process, because our initial kickoff is November actually, but I wanted to go ahead and start getting in practice with the lives and sharing insight on us, so people who haven't seen us before or weren't tuning into our calls, because this event was actually a call every Thursday at 7:30. So if you haven't been tuning into calls, just to give you some time to share the information, get some other people to join. Our goal is to continue to spread the word about this professional development and soft skills training, to let people know that it does affect the bottom line of your business and your organization. And if you really take the time to develop the people who are on your team or the people that you work with, you'll be amazing. You will be amazed at the wow factor that your clients will receive, which in turn creates repeat customers and enhances your brand experience. So with that being said, I'm not going to hold you guys any longer. Inbox me if you want the tips on giving and receiving effective communication. And until next week, you guys have a great one. Good night.